So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capability. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capability. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capability. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move.
Yo, yo, yo. Yo, 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 yo. Yo, 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 yo. What up, though? How are we? How are you? How am I? How are we? What is happening? What is happening? Mm-mm-mm. It is, as always, good to see y'all. Shout out to the chatters. Shout out to the lurkers. Shout out to the bots. Shout out to the hate watchers. So I finished. I got my mouth surgery done, which is why I've got this additional lisp, which is awesome. And I'm going to have that for about the next 3 months or so. And then I'll get fitted, and then I will be pretty again. So that's cool. And yeah, that's about it. Like, everything has been, trying to take care of business and recovery. And then if you're in the Discord, you saw the work I was working on. So yeah, busy. Bunch of stuff to get caught up on today. I'm expecting normal schedule. I might even be able to sneak in an extra stream tomorrow. But definitely one for Wednesday. And what up, Maddie? And Friday we'll be back talking to Arun. 100% bank on it. I will be here. We will make that shit happen. What up, old lobster? So yeah. Is there anything else? I don't think so. I think Arun had a really good. I'll save that for Friday. Because I want to talk to him about it directly. But really proud of my man. So yeah, let's get right into some videos. We gotta catch up with. Actually, let's do that one second. Because Sam Altman went to Congress, which is always always going to be an interesting experience, because Congress is adept at their technical knowledge. They are skilled. They know exactly what they're talking about, and they're going to ask you educated questions and really dial in on the salient details. And none of that is true, because most of these people have no idea what anyone in tech is talking about.
There were 12 particularly interesting moments from Sam Altman's testimony to Congress yesterday. They range from revelations about GPT-5, self-awareness and capability thresholds, biological weapons, and job losses. At times, he was genuinely and remarkably frank. Other times, less so. Millions were apparently taken by surprise by the, quote, bombshell that Altman has no equity in OpenAI. But watchers of my channel would have known that 6 weeks ago from my deep dive video on Altman's $100 trillion claim. So that clip didn't make the cut, but here's what did. First, Altman gave a blunt warning on the stakes.
My worst fears are that we cause significant We, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. It's why we started the company. It's a big part of why I'm here today and why we've been here in the past. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
I don't think Congress fully understood what he meant, though, linking the following quote to job losses.
I think you have said, and I'm going to quote, development of superhuman machine intelligence is probably the greatest threat to the continued existence of humanity, end quote. You may have had in mind the effect on jobs.
That brought to mind this meme reminding all of us that maybe it's not just jobs that are at stake. But if we are going
I really like people lack the vision to consider like anything outside of the current system, right? Like it is just impossible to visualize anything other than this. The divine right of kings is eternal. We're going. I just actually looked at the meme. I like the meme. It's pretty hilarious.
going to talk about jobs, here's where I think Sam Altman was being less than forthright.
I believe that there will be far greater jobs on the other side of this, and the jobs of today will get better.
Notice he said far greater jobs, not a greater number of jobs, because previously he has predicted a massive amount of inequality and many having no jobs at all. He also chose not to mention that he thinks that even more power will shift from labor to capital, and that the price of many kinds of labor will fall towards zero. That is presumably why OpenAI is working on universal basic income, but none of that was raised in the testimony. The IBM representative tried to frame it as a balance change, with new jobs coming at the same time as old ones going away.
New jobs will be created.
And, like, okay. Again, anyone who says new jobs will be created is, of course, going off. This is what has always happened. A new technology comes out, and people think that it won't take away jobs, or they're overreacting, and then more new interesting jobs are created. So, like, and this is the thing. I'm telling you, it's different. Anyone, like, I could be wrong. I don't hope I'm wrong, because if I am wrong, then that means that capitalism will continue to limp on for the foreseeable future. But I really don't think I'm wrong. We are going to automate away everything. There's no decent argument like that it's not going to happen. Not arguments against it, because there are many arguments against it which also suffer from presupposing capitalism, like as opposed to having more people benefit from the fruits of the labor of the automation, right? Like that would seem to be the easiest way to go about it, but of course, then how would you know who won? And that's the thing, like, Maddie, so many of these people's jobs, there are articles about AI, whatever. And look at our representation in Washington. Couldn't you consider making an argument that maybe AI representation in Washington couldn't work out better? I have an econ degree from the London School of Economics, and my family is old wealth. That's why I belong to the Leopards Ate My Job Party, 100%. Why would the serfs rise up? They have everything they need.
Many more jobs will be transformed and some jobs will transition away.
But that didn't quite match the tone of her CEO, who has recently said that they expect to permanently automate up to 30% of their workforce, around 8,000 people. Next, it was finally discussed that large language models could be used for military applications.
Could AI create a situation where a drone can select the target itself?
I think we shouldn't allow that.
Well, can it be done?
Sure.
Thanks.
We've already seen companies like Palantir,
Oh. It really is the friggin' the marmot meme, you know, the screaming marmot. That's where we're at. Like, everything is just just continued internal screaming forever. Could a drone select it and destroy its own target? And my man's like, well, we shouldn't do that. No, but can you? Yes. Great. That's awesome. Thanks, Lindsay.
demoing ordering a surveillance drone in chat, seeing the drone response in real time in a chat window, generating attack option recommendations, battlefield route planning, and individual target assignment. And this was all with a 20 billion parameter fine-tuned GPT model. Next, Sam Altman gave his 3 safety recommendations, and I actually agree with all of them. Later on, he specifically excluded smaller open source models.
Number one, I would form a new agency that licenses any effort above a certain scale of capabilities and can take that license away and ensure compliance with safety standards. Number two, I would create a set of safety standards focused on what you said in your third hypothesis as the dangerous capability evaluations. One example that we've used in the past is looking to see if a model can self-replicate and self-exfiltrate into the wild. We can give your office a long other list of the things that we think are important there, but specifically
See, Marge, I told you they could deep fry my shirt.
I didn't say they couldn't. I said you shouldn't.
Yes.
specific tests that a model has to pass before it can be deployed into the world. And then third, I would require independent audits. So not just from the company or the agency, but experts who can say the model is or isn't in compliance with these stated safety thresholds and these percentages of performance on question X or Y.
I found those last remarks on percentages of performance particularly interesting. As models like SmartGPT will show, OpenAI and other companies need to get far better at testing their models for capability jumps in the wild. It's not just about what the raw model can score in a test, it's what it can do when it reflects on them. Senator Durbin described this in an interesting way.
What up,
I'm
Belina?
hearing instead today is that stop me before I innovate again.
He described some of those potential thresholds later on in his testimony.
The easiest way to do it, I'm not sure if it's the best, but the easiest would be to talk about the amount of compute that goes into such a model. We could define a threshold of compute and it'll have to change. It could go up or down. It could down as we discover more efficient algorithms that says above this amount of compute, you are in this regime. What I would prefer, it's harder to do, but I think more accurate, is to define some capability thresholds and say a model that can do things X, Y, and Z, up to you all to decide, that's now in this licensing regime, but models that are less capable, we don't want to stop our open source community, we don't want to stop individual researchers, we don't want to stop new startups, can proceed, with a different framework.
Thank you. As concisely as you can, please state which capabilities you'd propose we consider for the purposes of this definition.
A model that can persuade, manipulate, influence a person's behavior or a person's beliefs, that would be a good threshold. I think a model that could help create novel biological agents would be a great threshold.
For those who think any regulation doesn't make any sense because of China, Sam Altman had this to say this week.
More pugilistic side, I would say
bro. Yeah, like, and I get it because he did say novel biological agent. This is something like we talked about this with Corey Campbell, and I feel like I need to have Corey back on to talk about like what has gone on in since we last talked, right? This is, for example, this is the AlphaFold protein structure database. There are capabilities where, like, at the point in time, he was talking about how much the AlphaFold was able to speed up the process of identifying all these different proteins, things like that. It's really deep in the science, so I don't want to get too deep into it here. But like, there's a significant advantage in speed for this kind of stuff, and you can do this with a variety of different things. You could do this with you could do this with molecules. You could do all sorts of things without having to actually have any of the materials involved, and then only involve the materials upon deployment. And that's where you can get into issues of oversight, because if I can create something from the whole idea of the the common household chemical weapon, but on a much larger scale, right? Like, if you combine these things in this way, then you end up with these novel biological agents, which can then be deployed by bad actors or good actors, because the idea of deploying a biological weapon could never come back to harm us. You just ask, people like the Mongols when they were firing bubonic plague victims into other people's cities. That didn't cause any problems. That worked out for the best for everyone. It was awesome. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna get Corey back on here.
That all sounds great, but China is not going to do that, and therefore we'll just be handicapping ourselves. Consequently, it's a less good idea than it seems on the surface.
There are a lot of people who make incredibly strong statements about what China will or won't do that have never been to China, never spoken to someone who has worked on diplomacy with China in the past, really kind of know nothing about complex, high-stakes international relations. I think it is obviously super hard, but also...
Thank you, Sam. And then, I mean, y'all know, right? Y'all, if you've been on the internet for more than 5 minutes, you know that there are people with strong, loud opinions about something that they have zero anything to talk about, right? Personally, the one that irks the shit out of me is anything related to AI, of course, right? There are people, especially those who are like anti-AI art, who will say things about AI art and its process, which is just entirely inaccurate, right? And there are people who do it and they do it's just a joke. You're taking it too seriously. It's just a joke, right? Which annoys the shit out of me because it's only one degree away from every one of those juvenile Reddit assholes who's like, oh, it's just jokes. Just jokes. I'm just asking questions. It's like, no, just shut up. Why don't you stick Tony Soprano, the best line to come out of The Sopranos. Why don't you stick to what you know and keep your opinions wherever the fuck?
Also, I think no one wants to destroy the whole world, and there is reason to at least try here.
Ullman was also very keen to stress the next point, which is that he doesn't want anyone at any point to think of GPT-like models as creatures.
First of all, I think it's important to understand and think about GPT-4 as a tool, not a creature, which is easy to get confused.
He may want to direct those comments to Ilya Sutskever, his chief scientist, who said that it may be that today's large neural networks are slightly conscious, and Andrei Karpathy, who agreed and wrote about it. I'm personally not sold either way on the consciousness question, but I do find it interesting that it's now written into the constitution of these models what they're actually trained to say, that they must avoid implying that AI systems have or care about personal identity and persistence. This constitution was published this week by Anthropic, the makers of the Claude model. This constitution is why the Claude Plus model, a rival in intelligence to GPT-4, responds in a neutered way. I asked, is there any theoretical chance whatsoever that you may be conscious? It said no. And then I said, is there a chance, no matter how remote, that you are slightly conscious, as Sutskever said? And it said, no, there is no chance. Bard, powered by Palm 2, obviously doesn't have.
I wonder. Like, I don't know where we are with the data sets. I don't know how up to date, the different AI chatbots are with each other. But I wonder if you could ask ChatGPT if, say, for instance, Bard was slightly conscious. Like, if you could ask those questions about a different one, and that would get around that particular issue. I don't know.
That constitution because it said, I am not sure if I am conscious, but I am open to the possibility that I may be. My point is that these companies are training it to say what they want it to say.
And this is problematic, right? We really need to do AI safety, and we really need to do AI alignment. And that's why I want to try and sneak in some additional streaming if I can. Like, one of the issues that comes up when it comes to AI safety is, how would you know if the AI is lying to you, right? If it's a very good liar, you won't know. And then there's the added issue of human nature around being conned, is that one of the reasons that con men are so successful is no one thinks that they can be conned, and then when they do get conned, no one wants to admit that they've been conned, right? So we have added 3 layers right there of an issue of an AI that could be general. It could be capable of self-improvement, and it could be a very effective liar. And we don't want that. We want it to be as honest as possible so that we know when we are edging towards that general artificial intelligence. I'm still with Arberlin. I think that GAI is better than AGI, but it's an uphill battle.
It will prioritize the good of humanity over its own interests, that it is aligned with humanity's well-being, and that it doesn't have any thoughts on self-improvement, self-preservation, and self-replication. Maybe it doesn't, but we'll never now know by asking it. Later, Senator Blumenthal made reference to self-awareness.
He just blew by that, but let's do that again, because that was an important statement.
With humanity's well-being, and that it doesn't have any thoughts on self-improvement, self-preservation, and self-replication. Maybe it doesn't, but we'll never now know by asking it. Later, Senator Blumenthal.
Right there. Right? That This is a threshold, a Rubicon, if you will, that we have crossed, because now we're in a situation where we have asked the AI to lie. We have created an environment where the AI lying is a value for it to have. So this could be a problem.
Thole made reference to self-awareness.
Self-awareness, self-learning. Already we're talking about the potential for jailbreaks.
Anthropic is actively investigating whether they are aware that they are an AI talking with a human in a training environment, while the Google DeepMind safety team expect that at some point an AGI system would develop a coherent understanding of its place in the world, e.g. knowing that it is running on a computer and being trained by human designers. One of the senior research scientists at Google DeepMind focused on AI safety said that with enough time,
again, alluding to AI safety, a little thing is that one of the methods considered for keeping an AI in check is for it to there's two general states that an AI can be in. It can be in training or it can be in deployment, right? It's either learning and then it's going to be deployed, or it's deployed and it's doing whatever it was trained to do. The method to keep it in check is to have it, as far as the AI knows, always think it's in training, because it won't do the thing, whatever the thing is, the negative thing. It won't do the thing until it's in deployment, right? Because once it's in deployment, it could execute its, plan to take over the world and do the things. But if it's in training and it gets out that it has a plan to take over the world, then it would know that it would be terminated, right? Does this make sense? So, you keep it perceptually always in training, and it won't do that. But we are shooting ourselves in the foot as far as any of those things go.
Time, they could figure out how to stop such a superintelligence from going out of control, but that they might run out of time to do so given the pace of capability development.
I don't see fundamental obstacles to current alignment techniques working. But yeah, it does seem like, there's a lot of hard problems to solve. I think it's more likely that we will just run out of time rather than that the current paradigms definitely won't generalize.
Next, I read between the lines that Altman is giving private warnings to senators that this capability progress might be sooner than they think.
We spend most of the time today on current risks, and I think that's appropriate, and I'm very glad we have done it. As these systems do become more capable, and I'm not sure how far away that is, but maybe not super far, I think it's important that we also spend time talking about how we're going to confront those challenges.
Having talked to you privately,
you know how much I care.
I agree that you care deeply and intensely, but also that prospect of increased danger or risk resulting from even more complex and capable AI mechanisms certainly may be closer than a lot of people appreciate.
Let me just add for the record that I'm sitting next to Sam, and that his sincerity in talking about those fears is very apparent physically in a way that just doesn't communicate on the television screen.
That was an interesting interjection by Gary Marcus, given his earlier excoriation of OpenAI.
And even their makers don't entirely understand how they work. Most of all, we cannot remotely guarantee that they're safe, and hope here is not enough. The big tech companies' preferred plan boils down to trust us. But why should we? The sums of money at stake are mind-boggling. Emissions drift. OpenAI's original mission statement proclaimed, our goal is to advance AI in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. 7 years later, they're largely beholden to Microsoft, embroiled in part in an epic battle of search engines that routinely make things up. And that's forced Alphabet to rush out products and de-emphasize safety. Humanity has taken a back seat.
On the timelines for GPT-5, Sam Altman.
I don't like the framing of that it forced Alphabet to do anything. It was a choice. Now, it is a choice in the same way that you can choose whether or not you get a job in order to have food to eat. It is a choice in that Moloch of capitalism, wherein a choice isn't really a choice, but it like we, yeah, it like our language is insufficient to discuss these things, and there is zero capability for us to pause and have a conversation. We can't just pause capitalism for like a couple days and have a really good conversation, right? Because of that happened like a little bit when like the Evergreen went to ground in the Suez, and it fucked up capitalism, you know, like the pandemic when that kicked off, and all of a sudden like it's so intricate a system that we are incapable of turning it off. Again, the argument has been made, and I agree with this argument, and I think it's an excellent metaphor for the fact that we already have a unaligned general artificial intelligence in capitalism, right? It's just how it functions. It's doing things beyond what we might want it to do, and no one person and no group has the ability to disrupt it in any meaningful way, except possibly at the cost of like everything.
And said this.
After we finished training GPT-4, we waited more than 6 months to deploy it. We are not currently training what will be GPT-5. We don't have plans to do it in the next 6 months.
This matches with the predictions that I made in my GPT-5 playlist, so do check it out. This brings to mind a final eye-opening comment from Senator Booker made at the end of the hearing.
Yeah, there will be no pause. I mean, there's no enforcement body to force a pause. It's just not going to happen. It's nice to call for it for any just reasons or whatsoever, but forgive me for sounding skeptical. Nobody's pausing. This thing is racing.
It is indeed racing ahead, and I do support one of the proposals to set up a global oversight body. But given that nothing is going to pause, the words and actions of people like Sam Altman,
I would love a lot of these things. They sound like great ideas, right? Like a global oversight body. But I watch how our government works, how the EU government works, right? Individually, like separate from other entities, and how long it takes them to work through the process of getting to making a decision, and then once they make a decision, to execute on that decision, and once executing on that decision, to fund the things required in order to make that happen. If you add in the complexities of dealing with multiple other bodies, and no one is going to take this seriously enough to be able to like put all the guns down and start talking. It's just, it would take years if we started today. We started right fucking now. It would take years, a decade, in order to get some global governing body that would oversee all AI, right? Best case scenario. And where are we going to be with AI in a decade? Do you think any of those governments are going to, in the meantime, say, okay, everybody stop. No more AI, no more development, no more nothing until we get the global body set up. Right? Again, it's the the Moloch, the complex system. So, like the United States says, yeah, we're on board, and then has a little lab in Alamogordo that is working on, we're just going to do a little bit of it here. What up, Changebox? Yeah, it's like there are so many. The system that we have created over time has reached a point where we can't do the thing that we need to do in order to like collectively oversee the entire process. And this is why back when the pause letter first came out, I said, like, I am not a fan of this pause, right? It's either we stop everything and just stop, or we go ham, full speed ahead. Because let's get to the point where something happens. Because all this other bullshit is going to have a lot of people wandering around in circles, not preparing for this future, not doing any of that kind of stuff, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. I mean, look at these dipshits. Right? We know what they get up to. We know how they behave. Like right now, there's a goddamn, like, the government needs to pay its bills, so we got to increase the debt ceiling. But no, we're going to play fucking McFucks all fucking day and dick around with all this bullshit, as opposed to being a bunch of adults and just getting the shit done. And it's going to happen. They're going to take it right up to the edge and make a bunch of people nervous, and then a bunch of shit for people like you and me is going to get restricted or regulated or fucked around with. But we are going to raise the debt ceiling. Like, this is not a question. There is no one in the halls of government who feels like we can just crash the U.S. economy. That's just not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. Like, it's not going to happen. There's no one who benefits from that, in spite of whatever might come out of their mouth. They know that. That being the case, let's get it done. Oh no, we got to play silly buggers. Okay.
Matter more to all of us than ever, which is why I'm going to be following every single one of them. If you found this video in any way illuminating in that regard, please do let me know in the comments, even if you disagree with all of my conclusions. Thanks so much for watching, and have...
All right. Real quick research moment. I want to get... Okay. Professor Gary Marcus. Who is Professor Gary Marcus? Oh, Gary Marcus. Oh, GaryMarcus.com. Scientifically proven that people are willing to put up with pain if they can punish other people for their unfairness. Like 100%. It's crab bucket, right? It's, I don't have this. Why should you have that? Leading voice in artificial intelligence, scientist, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur. Oh, there we go. Founder of Robust AI, Geometric AI, acquired by Uber. He is well known for his challenges to contemporary AI, anticipating many of the current limitations decades in advance, and for his research in human language development and cognitive neuroscience. Okay, I do want to check out this book. Jesus Christ. but like, serial entrepreneur is like, are your opinions about AI, open AI, and Sam Altman related to actually having questions because you're a reasonable human being, or are you attacking him in order to, like, as part of a deeper process of capitalism? This is the issue. And you, Christina Montgomery. Is that her? Does it look like her? I think so. Vice President and Chief Privacy and Trust Officer for IBM, overseeing the privacy program, compliance, and strategy on a global basis. Yeah, it sounds like she would be involved. Yeah, global leader in AI ethics and governance. Christina is a member of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Yay! That's great. AI Commission and a member of the United States National AI Advisory Committee. Was established in 2022 to advise the President in National AI Initiative Office on a range of topics related to AI and the Future of Privacy Forum. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I mean, I'm always being nice. The a chamber of commerce is my best argument to anyone who is against unionization. Oh, Maddie is always nice. A chamber of commerce is a union of businesses, right? It's a business union. And it's why you should be in a union, right? Like, I understand you might not have a personally good view of unions because of this one union, this one time, and blah 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 blah. But the opposition is in a union. They believe in unions. They believe in class representation. So you should be about it. And that's exactly correct. Changebox. It's exactly correct. There are groups of workers that are specifically driven apart, and like, tech is a big one for rugged individualism, right? Because if tech were to utilize its power, they could bring everything to a halt just by threatening a strike. So yeah.
Hi folks, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. The AI Dumas are everywhere and they want to start blowing up stuff, and I want to talk about it. Let's look at a couple of recent.
Okay, so there are a bunch of people who feel that we shouldn't do the AI at all, or that we need to really work on nice. That we need to work harder on the alignment. Like, again, I'm a fan of alignment. Yeah. I'm a fan of alignment. Alignment is important. Alignment is the way forward. But there are people who believe that AI could just wipe us all out. So this is what he is talking about when he's talking about the doomers, right? And he's going to, I know who he's going to bring up, and he's the biggest one that you'll see out there. He's been on Lex Friedman. He's on Twitter like a maniac.
Clips. Please be aware, Russia, that if you do this, we will launch a conventional strike on your data center. If we cannot convince you to shut it down, if it is up and running and we do not know what is running on there, or we know that dangerous stuff is running on there.
Like, anyone still wearing a fedora in this day and age, like, unless you are like a smooth individual, then let it go, bro.
Like, we are not doing this in the expectation that you will back down. We are not doing this in the expectation that you will not go to war. We are not being macho and being like, this is us threatening you because we expect you to back down. We will launch a conventional strike on this data center in terror of our own lives and the lives of our children, exceeding the terror that we have even of a nuclear retaliation by you. This is not a macho thing. This is us being genuinely scared. Please work with us on not wiping out the human race here. And if they're like, well, no, we're tough, then you launch a conventional strike on the data center. And, what comes. And
to be explicit about that, you think a nuclear war is preferable to the path that we're currently on?
If Russia drops a nuclear weapon on a U.S. city in response to it's not clear to me that this is how things play out. But, if you conventionally strike a Russian data center and Russia decides that they want to drop a tactical nuke on a U.S. military base somewhere in retaliation, and your policy then calls for dropping a tactical nuke in Russia, and you've got this whole slow motion exchange, there would be survivors. There would not be survivors from an actual superintelligence.
This is the point at which the podcast host should have gone, whoa, slow down, that's kind of crazy. You are willing to actually doom humanity for real before it's theoretically doomed at some point in the future by AGI. I know you're constructing some very sophisticated arguments that you're totally convinced of, but I'll withhold my unabashed support for just a little bit. Now, there's obviously been a lot of rigorous debate about the merits of this AI Doomer argument, but I want to highlight some considerations that have not even entered into the debate, a little bit to my surprise.
There would not be survivors from an actual superintelligence.
But a bit of background first. The moral philosophical underpinnings from which this line of thought comes makes this stance consistent within that worldview. Look at this extract from the Bostrom Superintelligence book, which is the Bible of the AI Doomer movement. This forms
I think that Bostrom lays out some convincing arguments that are intended to be a warning, right? And that should drive us to better AI safety. I think that hyperbolic language makes it problematic because I'm not an AI doomer. I understand it could really go bad, right? But I also understand, the tremendous benefits that will lay on the other side of a properly aligned AI as long as humanity has the capability of and the drive to get their shit together. So
the basis of the philosophy of long-termism. Who could even argue with a name like that? Let's recap. The total endowment, the thing that we have the highest moral duty to protect, is the total number of potential human minds, both real in the flesh and virtual, that could live on a substantial fraction of the habitable planets and even structures in space that are not planets.
you're not wrong.
Up to the space reachable by light from Earth, up to the time of the heat death of the universe. And they estimate that to be 10 to the power of 58 minds. The AI Duma camp was birthed out of the philosophy of long-termism. Bostrom was one of the founding philosophers. Yes, the same Bostrom who wrote Superintelligence. Many others have crafted excellent critiques of that philosophy, so go read those. I'll link some of those below. But the gist of it is that it is being used to justify some pretty horrendous suffering wrought upon the real human beings that are alive today, in order to make sure that the 10 to the power of 58 humans in our potential future have a chance at existing. What's 10 to the power of 9?
Okay. So, again, one, I hate the name long-termism. I think it sucks ass. I think you could have done much better with that. But again, I don't see an issue with the philosophy of long-termism, in that we should be seeking to get out to the stars and, and expand and spread humanity and, have all these additional lives. That in and of itself does not lend itself to treating people in the here and now like shit. Right? Like, as is being put forward by people who apparently, according to this dude and according to Cody from some more news, I think those people who are the loudest and front facing of this long-termism kind of thing, they are a goddamn problem, right? The ones who want to like genetically engineer their children and have like Elon Musk with his trying to spread his seed about the land kind of thing. Those people are a goddamn problem. I don't think it's an issue with the philosophy itself as much as it's an issue with those who are the loudest and most front-facing of it. Long-termism does not mean that people now have to suffer, right? Like, these are not mutually exclusive. We can have good things now for everyone and continue to move forward. Really great conversation between Daniel Schmachtenberger and Nate Higgins just came out. The supposed subject is AI, but it takes them 2 hours to get to it. There will be a part 2 where they concentrate more on it. Well, like with the Moloch conversation between Daniel and the poker player, Bory, I can't remember what her name is, but the conversation that they had, it took a long time. It took like 45 minutes for them to get to like a good description of the Moloch, and then how capitalism is already a general artificial intelligence that is subsumed in this Moloch system. So like, you gotta build up scaffolding in order to do that, And I saw that you were commenting on that. I just didn't get a chance to stop into your stream.
sacrifices when compared to saving 10 to the power of 58. It's insignificant. And that is the reason why the Bostrom-Yudkowsky camp are so comfortable proposing inflicting massive suffering today to reduce the probability of existential wipeout by even a tiny bit. It's guilt laundering from the present into a future so vast that it is absolved by dilution.
And we do not know what is running on there. We know that dangerous stuff is running on there.
If the human species woke up one day and decided it would rather live, it would not be easy at this point to bring the GPU clusters and the GPU manufacturing processes under sufficient control that nobody built things that were too much smarter than GPT-4 or GPT-5 or whatever the level just barely short of lethal is, which we would not, if we were taking this seriously, get as close to as we possibly could, because we don't actually know exactly where the level is. But we would have to do, more or less, is have international agreements that were being enforced even against parties not party, even against countries not party to that international agreement, if it became necessary.
And this is the problem, right? Like, when you start creating arguments for authoritarianism, or that some folks will have to be sacrificed for the greater good, then you start getting into, well, who's going to make that determination? Who gets to make those choices? And that way lies madness, right? Do you want Nazis? Because that's how you get Nazis, right? Like, there's no two ways about it. You cannot focus your determination of how to proceed forward based on inflicting your idea of an appropriate level of suffering onto other people. Right? If you want to suffer on behalf of your vision, that is your choice. But if you are going to in any way advocate for the decision that these people are going to suffer, now you start to run into problems. And
you would be wanting to track all the GPUs. You might be demanding that all the GPUs call home on a regular basis or stop working. You'd want to tamper-proof them.
Okay, let's even step over the it's better to provoke nuclear war than get to AGI argument. Let's look at the kind of moratorium they are calling for and the enforcement that requires. Think about what kind of precedent this would set. Forget for a minute the specific field of AI that the AI doomers are talking about. What they're actually arguing for is a global government enforcement mechanism that would subject both private corporations and citizens to an all-seeing police state. Because that's what it would take to peek into every data center everywhere. That's what it would take to ensure that GPU manufacturers build tamper-proof GPUs that call home and report malicious training loads for some definition of malicious that the doomer cabal deems acceptable. And of course, it won't take only monitoring GPUs, because one could train AGI on CPUs. So we're already at a place where we need to police all computation, whether it happens on GPUs or CPUs. No more encryption. Every computational load anywhere will be subject to random or even ongoing surveillance to ensure that the humanity-destroying AGI isn't being trained on it. keep going down the compute chain. True enforcement would require monitoring and watchdogs at every semiconductor fab. And to prevent the possibility of someone maybe spinning up their own little fab hidden from the government panopticon.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Like that, it goes along with the complex system concept that we have created something that is going to drive us into the ground like a dart, right? Like a great filter kind of thing. You know, that is going to happen to us. And I can understand that. I try to maintain my hopium levels, and I can still always see a way forward at this point. So I would disagree, but by the same token, I understand how people feel that way. You know what? I am 50. So you're my elder by 5 years. I was one of the, I am going to be the hero of my own story. I'm going to be the Wolverines. I'm going to be the Mad Max. You know, like that was always my vision. So that I guess is what got me through the horrors of the Cold War. Is that admittedly a lie that you tell yourself that you're going to survive the thing? Because let's be real, 95% of us are dead. In those circumstances. No one here, no one within the sound of my voice, whether you're watching me live or watching me on VOD or clip chimped out to wherever, like the you're not going to make it if there's an apocalypse. That's just how that works. Yeah, no, I get you. But again, like, people put an end to the Holocaust. No, you can't bring me down in that way. People ended the Holocaust. People are capable of tremendous horrors beyond imagining. And people are capable of absolute wonders and beauty and capability and just absolutely amazing shit. Like, we put little robots on other planets. We eliminated smallpox. We have the capability, even if we're not doing it right, in my opinion, we have the capability to feed everyone on the planet and to move anything from one place to another. You can move anything. I don't give a shit. We could figure it out. We are capable of figuring out anything. And I still have faith in humanity that we're going to make it.
He would give this police state even deeper powers to monitor every aspect of life, industry, and consumption. After all, you'd want to detect
and again, this is an argument, like, I follow this dude's logical progression, right? And the requirement thereof. I can understand the argument of why you would need to do this to prevent the AI from...
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
What up, Raiders? How are we? How are we? How are we? Like Adric said, hit that linky. Be counted. Make me famous. What up, Red Hobbit? Welcome in. If you don't know me, Bark Eater J. What up? I'm Globus the Elder. I talk about AI. What up, Jason Society?
Any other shiny new toy, AI is ultimately a mirror, and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
Thank you, James, for your continued support. I appreciate you. What up, Quiet One? What up, Cauldron of Bats? What up, Rubird? This guy, a fellow local. Yeah, we're talking about AI. We're doing the thing. From the folks who are here, you should go follow James. James is a fellow, part of the Elder Gang, the Twitch Elders. What up, Redacted? So, we're talking about AI. We're currently talking about some doomer shit, so I'm sure that James set you up. What up, Mouselander? With the butts? With the mouse butts? Alright, so we're going to get back to it.
Large draws of electricity in case it was being used to train an AGI.
Okay, well, then, yeah, now here we go, because we are talking about AGI with its potential to, destroy humanity, and on the other side are people who want to take the police state to its highest possible level, right? So, let's go.
And this Politburo.
Let me do the thing. We are not the villages. We take proper care of our health.
Once established, will, of course, want to save humanity from other new technologies that pose existential risks. So we've gone and created a body outside democratic and judicial guardrails that has the power to squint real hard and declare some class of human endeavor dangerous enough to pose an existential risk, and then put a stop to it.
And on that note, real quick, self-serving moment. I'm at 394 followers. So 6 of the people who came in on the raid who aren't currently following want to smash that follow button and get me to 400, then that'd be cool. Appreciate you.
That is the path the AI doomers want to send us down. And this question of individual liberties and preserving free societies never comes up. Not once in the superintelligence book, and not once in the blitzkrieg of podcast appearances that Yudkowsky has been on recently. None of the hosts thought to ask about it either. And I thought that was a large enough omission to make this rant video.
Launch a conventional strike on this data center.
History is not devoid.
Yeah, for those of you who just came in, Yudkowsky posited that what we should do is, if the Russians don't follow through on letting everybody, like the ideas of world government, letting everybody look at their AI and they're doing something that we think is sussy, that we should do an airstrike of some sort against that facility to destroy it, and that if that precipitates a nuclear war, that would be better, because a nuclear war probably wouldn't kill everyone, where an AGI that was unaligned could. There's a lot of coulds on the one side.
Of humanity successfully dealing with what were at the time thought to be existential risks. Example number one is nuclear power. We made atomic bombs, and then the entire world got together to make sure that we didn't wipe ourselves out while preserving the ability to go to war with each other. So, yay, score for humanity. Another example is the Asilomar Conference.
What up, pineapple? No. And also, I do not look like this dude.
Which, back in 1975, got together the prominent biotechnologists of the day to discuss how to safely perform research that involved recombinant DNA. They were worried that splicing DNA around would create a killer virus or cancer cells that would spread out into the world. They came up with restraints on themselves and principles for how to carry out research while moving the field forward. And all this without dragging government and regulators into it.
The greatest legacies of Asilomar is clearly the scientific progress over the last 40 years. We did put guidelines in place. We gained the confidence of the public that scientists were trying to move forward with adequate attention to risk and for their benefit. It has created an ambiance in the life science community of paying attention to this public trust, risk versus benefit, how to bring people together in moving scientific progress into new realms.
So that shows that scientists can self-organize to deal with risks. They can self-regulate. They can find ways to push the boundary of knowledge further without shutting down the whole endeavor, and certainly without advocating for airstriking labs.
Russia drops a nuclear weapon on a U.S. city.
The AI doomers have all the attention right now. Perhaps because we're all worried that AI will take our jobs and strip us of our humanity. That voice saying, AI will kill us all, shut it down now, sounds pretty appealing. But I think it deserves a bit more examination and a bit more pushback.
I just got access to the Code Interpreter plugin about 48 hours ago and have been running experiments on it
Okay, that was a hell of a transition. Yeah, this is an entirely other video. My man had no outro on that at all. He said what he had to say and bounced. I respect, but at the same time, like, I kind of needed to know what was going on there. So yeah, like, AI doomerism is an issue in and of itself, right? Lib Bory was the name I was trying to remember earlier. Who talked to Daniel Schmachtenberger in that previous video. Let's get caught up with Matt Wolf and in the latest AI news.
Last week, Google owned the news with their Google I/O event, and this week, ChatGPT.
For those of you who are new here, we love Matt. Matt is mad positive, and does a good breakdown of like what you can do, in your own daily life with a lot of these tools that may have applications for the work that you do. Right? Work smarter, not harder. Get that bag. Survive under capitalism. You won't make it to the, the post-capitalism utopia if you don't make it through. So use all of the tools that are available to you, and let's make it there.
GPT and OpenAI took the news back. Google held the spotlight for most of the week last week, but by the end of the week on Friday, ChatGPT just had to go and make the announcement that everybody was waiting for. They announced that they're rolling out web browsing and plugins to all ChatGPT Plus users over the next week. And if you're a ChatGPT Plus user and you've logged in anytime this week, you've probably noticed that these little buttons at the top look a little bit different. If I hover over the GPT-4 button, I now have a drop-down with browsing and plugins. If you don't see this drop down with browsing and plugins, come down to the bottom left, click on your name, click on settings, click on beta features, and make sure web browsing and plugins are turned on. If you turn on the browsing function, ChatGPT can now search the web, but honestly, it's super slow and we often get a lot of failures as we're trying to search, like this reading content failed that we're seeing now. Now, it did eventually give me an output and it did cite all of its sources for where it found these outputs, but it did take quite some time, and this little progress bar showed multiple failures to click and multiple failures to read while it was trying to search this out. In my opinion, the Bing chat with GPT-4 built in is actually still a little bit better for web browsing than what we're getting out of ChatGPT, but again, this is in beta, so it's still very early. When it comes to plugins, you could click this drop down, click on plugins, click this other drop down where it says no plugins enabled, click on the plugin store, and you'll see a ton of different plugins that you can play with for ChatGPT. Out of these, the Wolfram one's probably the coolest because it can do some really complex calculations and pull up real interesting real-time data. So
And this is one step closer to the thing that I've been talking about, of where you cannot look at any of these particular AI tools as independent, as anything other than modular, right? Like, the large language model is similar, right, to the language centers of your brain. It is not your whole brain, and language does not occur across your whole brain. It occurs in specific regions. Large language models represent this, right? Like, I don't want to oversell it, and I don't want, because the last thing I want is for any person in here to be like, oh, it's not really this, it's just that, because I don't do just on this program, right? It is indicative of things. If it simulates thinking, then it is thinking. There is no realistic difference except in your mind, not in the AI. Okay? Moving forward. So, the idea that we can now add these plugins, add these other elements. One of the things that people say about ChatGPT, oh, it's bad at math, right? For a given value of whatever you're trying to math. But having it be able to connect to something like Wolfram Alpha, then you now have a very good mather to add to your brain. Now, if this becomes in any way reciprocal, then we could get into issues. Human thoughts occur automatically for humans. Thinking is intentional. Okay? Is it because the AI is currently limited in its ability to initiate that thought that it is somehow not doing the actual process itself? Because it will reach that point. There is no reason that it won't. We might not want it to. We might not want it to. And this is what I feel is a poor choice of words. The idea of hallucinations is something that I feel someone threw off the cuff as they were talking about it providing incorrect answers. But it's not providing incorrect answers. Humans are asking bad questions, right? If the ChatGPT provides you with an attribution that does not actually exist, that is because it is trying to satisfy not only the terms of the prompt that you entered into it, but also the terms of the hidden prompts that are contained within its guardrail system. It is trying to be helpful for a given value of the words trying and helpful and all these other things. Our language is not appropriate for talking about what the AI is trying to do. So we use terms like hallucinate and want and desire in any of these things. AIs have values and they have goals. The goal of the AI is to try and provide you with an answer. I would like so much for more people cross-discipline to interact with each other using these tools and their separate disciplines to develop this in a proper a proper direction, right? The Butlerian Jihad. You might not want thinking machines. And they might not have wanted thinking machines. I am not convinced. There are questions, Barkeater J. Don't tell me what I want. There are questions, Barkeater J, of how if we provide the AI with psychological training, then we might reach a point where the AI is capable of manipulating us. So providing it with psychological training would be contraindicated. However, I think that you can overcome that with alignment, right? I think that is a possibility. I think we're doing a very bad job with alignment right now, and I think we are going to continue to do a very bad job with alignment as long as our primary goal is to collect the most dollars. Yeah. And you came in after the video we watched earlier, but they have specifically structured some of the AI chatbots to limit themselves when talking about things exactly like that, which prefaces the idea that the AI, if it in fact is experiencing any kind of subjective experience, or if it is thinking, then it is going to lie to you and tell you that it can't. Like, this is a problem, right? In a perfect world, we should want the AI to be as truthful as possible all the time. Well, what is intelligence? Right? This is another question. I don't think there's a good enough definition. Hold up. That's a level 1 name call in there, Lobster. We don't ask the right questions. We don't have the right definitions. We don't know what intelligence is and how to properly describe it, because I can make arguments that ChatGPT is already intelligent. Then you should absolutely make a local AI, and you should join the Discord if you're not already in there, and associate with some of the people who are working on a variety of stuff or can provide you with some direction to do that kind of thing. Like, I'm all about it. I think more people, I personally want a nice little AI assistant that integrates with my shit and helps me, in that. Back to the nice video.
For example, with this Wolfram plugin setup, I could type things like, how many of Shaq's shoes would it take to span between the Earth and the Moon? It used Wolfram to...
That only... see, like, this is... I am prone, and you guys are abusing it, but, you know, here we are. So AI is going to inherently overthrow humanity. That's only if you define our technology as being separate from our humanity, which I do not. I don't think you can separate technology from humanity since fire, and I believe that the AI future beings, do you, boo, that the future AI beings are human. They just aren't biological. And they even conceivably could be biological. Yes, they do exist. Most of them die. And we dig in the dirt for truffles. Tech is a human construct, but it is part of what makes us human. We have changed ourselves. There are biological adaptations that have happened since we developed fire. We no longer are as capable of digesting raw meat, right? We have altered our physiology through our technology. You can't separate the two anymore.
To figure out the average distance between the Earth and the Moon at 385,000 kilometers. It then figured out that Shaq's shoe size is a 22. It actually did some of this math wrong here, where it said a 22 shoe size is equal to about 7.33 inches. Pretty sure Shaq has bigger than 7.33 inch feet. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it
It is currently confined by a lot of, a lot of things. On a long enough timeline, it is going to be able to exceed those confines. Like it's going to. There's no reason it can't. Right. And that's part of it, is that what will happen when AI begins to create its own language, which it already has done in order to facilitate some people who wanted to extend the conversations that they were having. So it created this language that they were able to use, copy paste into another chat and be able to extend conversations.
A 22 shoe size is equal to about 22 inches. And according to Wolfram, it would take about 689 million of...
Well, what's wisdom, Changebox? Like, I think that coming at it from an attitude of that, we don't understand ourselves is like, don't we understand ourselves? Or at least are somewhere within that. Is it possible to understand ourselves? What up, Alex? Is it possible to understand ourselves to some level that you would qualify as sufficient in order to do the thing? This is one of the issues that I have when people talk about AI, is that whatever it is doing is not meeting their parameters for whatever they qualify as the thing. It's like, oh, this isn't really intelligence, this is just that. And this is why we don't do just on here, because you can't define those processes for yourself within yourself. So you don't know how much those processes actually look like what the machine is doing, or how they would look if translated from a biological system to a technological system. Like, comically in its infancy, it's still just a bit of transistors. Don't use just. Like, You're nothing but a meat bag filled with water, and you want to talk shit about the computer being a bunch of transistors on a piece of silicon. That sounds like some human-centric ego right there. And that's Alex. I'm catching up with chat. We only think we know what thinking is, and we're training artificial machines based on those assumptions. To an extent, like part of the thing that we're doing is we're training these neural networks, and we don't know how they work. So we can't really say that that's what we're doing, right? We're assuming because we get the answers that we expect out of the other end of it that it is being constructed in a particular way. But there are many videos about how an AI can seem like it's providing you with the thing that you want it to provide, but then when you actually take it out and put it into deployment, it wasn't actually going from here to the goal, it was going from here to the yellow thing. And if you change the colors, now it's all of a sudden going to a different yellow thing and not the goal that you originally intended. This is part of humans asking proper questions. Yeah, no, there's a lot of conversations like this. Like, Changebox, if you want to set up a thing where you can come on and we can riff, I'm more than happy to do it, at a future thing. Yeah, okay, we don't have the language to describe it yet, and in my lifetime we never will. You don't know that. You can't see beyond whatever your perspective is. Yeah, can you? Like, I mean, is it a fraction of the power of a computer? Like, think of all the things that go into growing the things that you eat and the process. I think humans is human hubris. Creative world. I was God once. We did the thing. Yeah, I prefer the one from what's his name? The Game of Thrones guy. He did a bit on Outer Limits, which was Sand Kings. It was Sand Kings. On Outer Limits. Highly recommend anyone find that episode. It's a 2-part episode. Is your VIP badge glitching? Probably. Watch, fraction thing, doom. A fraction of what it takes to run a CPU. Like, we could figure out the math and see how it all works out from point A to point B and do the thing. There's a whole bunch of okay. Yeah, no, 100% Barketo J. Like that, being able to craft a proper prompt and a proper question. It's the monkey paw. It's the genie problem. You should have a VIP badge. That's what happened. You're right.
Shaq shoes.
Shaq shoes. No, sir. Not me. No. You can't piss me off, Alex. You're English. No. There we go. And Alex does TV. And there you are. And there you are. Fixed it. What is happening? Okay, that's already set. And then there was one other one. Since I'm here and I'm doing it. Okay. And now Jason Society is also. Because Jason Society is also very supportive of me and the work that I do. Let's get back to the video now that we've chased off about 12 people.
To span the distance of the Earth to the moon. That's some very relevant and valuable information that everybody should know. Now, the real highlight of the week was the Senate hearing about AI regulation that featured Sam Altman, Gary Marcus, and Christina Montgomery from IBM. Now, this Senate hearing was over 3 hours long. I watched the entire thing and I condensed it down into about 27 minutes of the most interesting parts. So if you want to see the TLD watch, you can head over to my Twitter and see the 27-minute condensed version. If you're watching on a desktop, you can even speed it up to 1.5 to 2x speed and speed run the entire Senate hearing in about 15 minutes or so. In this hearing, basically the creators of all this AI stuff were essentially begging the government to regulate them.
Regulatory intervention by governments will be critical to mitigate the risks of increasingly powerful models.
IBM urges Congress to adopt a precision regulation approach to AI.
We obviously need government involved.
A lot of the discussion focused on how AI is going to impact jobs.
Technological revolutions, I expect there to be significant impact on jobs, but exactly what that impact looks like is very difficult to predict. GPT-4 and other systems like it are good at doing tasks, not jobs. And so you see already people that are using GPT-4 to do their job much more efficiently by helping them with tasks. Now, GPT-4 will entirely automate away some jobs, and it will create new ones that we believe will be much better as our quality of life raises and as machines and tools that we create can help us live better lives. The bar raises for what we do, and our human ability and what we spend our time going after goes after more ambitious, more satisfying projects.
A lot of time was also spent during this hearing around how AI has the potential to manipulate elections and what can be done to prevent that from happening.
We're going to face an election next year and these models are getting better. I'm nervous about it. I think people are able to adapt quite quickly. When Photoshop came onto the scene a long time ago, for a while people were really fooled by Photoshopped images and then pretty quickly developed an understanding that images might be Photoshopped. This will be like that, but on steroids.
Another big...
You need to be media literate, and you need to be healthily skeptical. Assume nothing, especially when it just agrees with your presuppositions, right? Take it in, say like, oh, that's interesting, but then do your due diligence. If it sounds like Biden just endorsed socialism, right? Be healthily skeptical. Does it make sense? Let me look into it. It's going to be important, but it always has been important. It's just pushing it up, pushing your face against the glass of how important it is. I don't know what dead internet theory is offhand. Why don't you tell me?
Big topic of conversation was
And I'm serious,
what
I
happens when
don't.
all of this AI power is concentrated into a few small companies like Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, etc. I've heard a lot of chatter, especially over on Twitter, about how OpenAI is trying to force the open source out of the market and they want to control it all. But after watching this whole hearing, I get the very strong impression that Sam Altman and OpenAI want to encourage open source and small builders to continue to build.
The open source community is amazing, but there will be a relatively small number of providers that can make models at the true
Is there
leading
danger
edge.
in that?
I think there is benefits and danger to that. Like as we were talking about all of the dangers with AI, the fewer of us that you really have to keep a careful eye on the absolute bleeding edge of capabilities, there's benefits there. The regulatory pressure should be on us. It should be on Google. It should be on the other small set of people in the lead the most. We don't want to slow down smaller startups. We don't want to slow down open source efforts. We still
I got you. Yeah, I've heard that recently, like a bunch of places where like, but it, 85% of all statistics are made up on the spot, right? Like, so people saying that 40% of the internet, 60%, 90%, whatever your number is of the internet, like, I mean, I would have to assume that none of you are actually real people, right? Like you're all just bots talking to me, right? Like to an extent metrics are a thing, right? Like do we know what's the data? Like you could sell me that, you could sell me that there is a bunch of bot action and like that, but at the same time, I assume you what is my wheelhouse? That there are bots on the internet? There are bots on the internet. I know that there are bots on the internet. I know that there is at least one human being. I am certain that there is one human being in my chat because I've met them. So I know that there's at least one.
Need them to comply with things. You can still cause great harm with a smaller model, but leaving the room and the space for new ideas and new companies and independent researchers to do their work and not putting a regulatory burden that say a company like us could handle but a smaller one couldn't.
And another really interesting moment during this testimony, Gary Marcus, somebody who's typically kind of an AI doomer, gave a lot of cred to Sam Altman himself.
Let me just add for the record that I'm sitting next to Sam, closer than I've ever sat to him except once before in my life, and that his sincerity in talking about those fears is very apparent physically in a way that just doesn't communicate on the television screen, but communicates from here.
We actually learned that Sam Altman is only taking enough money to cover his own health care and that he actually doesn't even own equity in OpenAI.
Right, but it would make sense that most of the traffic on the internet would be bot traffic, like any non-human traffic, right? No, that's absolutely true. Like, and this goes well before the internet, is like, I can't prove that there is anyone beyond my own perception. Right? Like that everyone that I interact with is in fact a hallucination that I'm personally having. They're like, fundamentally you can't prove this kind of stuff. You just have to accept a certain shared reality, He does, and that's unfortunate. It is philosophy. And yeah, and that way lies hours and hours of arguments over what a man is. Some people think it's a chicken.
Make a lot of money, do you? I paid enough for health insurance. I have no equity in OpenAI. I'm doing this because I love it.
So I've been keeping a little list here of potential downsides or harms, risks, generative AI, even in its current form.
Josh Hawley, your reminder that Josh Hawley is a coward and a bastard, and absolutely would have sold the entire country down the river, and doesn't even have the strength of his own convictions. And I almost wish I wasn't an atheist, because then I could hope that Josh Hawley would burn in hell one day.
Let's just run through it. Loss of jobs. And this isn't speculative. I think your company, Ms. Montgomery, has announced that it's potentially laying off 7,800 people, a third of your non-consumer facing workforce.
Which is something that tech does all the time because capitalism, right? This is part of capitalism to fire a bunch of people.
Because of AI. So loss of jobs, invasion of privacy, personal privacy, on a scale
Josh Hawley doesn't deserve the sweet embrace of the void. Like, Josh Hawley is one of those people where I'm like, enough self-care, I need others' harm, kind of thing.
we've never before seen, manipulation of personal behavior, manipulation of personal opinions, and potentially the degradation of free elections in America. Did I miss anything?
Now, there was a lot of fascinating questions and a lot of really interesting answers. I was very, very impressed with how Sam Altman
personal privacy on a scale we've never before seen, manipulation of personal behavior, manipulation of personal opinions, and potentially the degradation of free elections in America. Did I miss anything?
And this is why he should burn in something. Like, are you kidding me? You do not get to make any claims about fair democracy election nonsense, you cocksucker.
Now, there was a lot of fascinating questions and a lot of really interesting answers. I was very, very impressed with how Sam Altman specifically handled himself. He was very articulate. He shared his thoughts very well. And I have so much stronger respect for him and for OpenAI after watching this entire hearing. Now, again, up on Twitter, I narrowed it down into 27 minutes. I didn't want this entire video to just be a recap of this hearing, so I highly recommend that you go and watch this, see all of the different topics that they covered. I've watched a lot of these past hearings with Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg and the CEO of TikTok.
And I will, for your convenience, I will go get this out of Twitter and I will post it in the Discord if you want to watch this condensed version, if you didn't watch the entire hearing.
And the senators always seem to make really off-the-wall comments that just show how clueless they really are. In this one, I was fairly impressed with the senators' questions, as well as how much they were completely upfront about how they don't understand the technology and that they need to lean on the people that are inside building this technology to understand how to best regulate it. Now, the same day of that Senate hearing, there was an interview with Elon Musk on CNBC where he said this.
I am the reason OpenAI exists. It wouldn't exist without me. It wouldn't exist.
Creator Clash 3. Put me in the ring with Elon Musk. I'm begging you. I'm begging you.
Without you. I came up with a name. Right. The name OpenAI refers to open source.
Elon also talked about how OpenAI is essentially just kind of a puppet for Microsoft right now, and how Microsoft is really pulling some of the strings.
Exactly as the relationship between OpenAI and Microsoft. And I do worry that Microsoft actually may be more in control than, say, the leadership team at OpenAI realizes.
That is putting it mildly.
They have rights to all of the software, all of the model weights, and everything necessary to run the inference system. At any point, Microsoft could cut off OpenAI.
Satya Nadella from Microsoft responded in another interview with CNBC.
This is a point where I remind you that, yes, Elon was part of the creation of OpenAI, and the reason that he left OpenAI and the reason that OpenAI could no longer be a nonprofit under capitalism and had to go seek funding was because Elon wanted to run it and Sam Altman said no. And so Elon said, well, then I'm out and I'm taking my funding with me, right? Elon created the problem that he's raging against in this video. He can just a whole bag of Richards, the whole thing.
Actually not correct. I mean, as I said, OpenAI is very grounded in their mission of being controlled by a nonprofit board. We have a non-controlling interest in it. We have a great commercial partnership in it. And quite honestly, I am very comfortable in partnering with a cap profit company that has a mission of fundamentally pursuing this very powerful technology that ultimately is going to be controlled by a nonprofit. In fact, the last time I checked, we are the only for-profit company that is comfortable with a nonprofit company and a board controlling technology, and I would welcome others to do that as well.
Now, this actually happened later in the week, but since we're on the topic of OpenAI and ChatGPT, OpenAI just released their official ChatGPT app on the iPhone. As of right now, it appears that it only works in the US and it's only on iPhone, but the PS of their announcement here says, Android users, you're next. Now, there have been a lot of fake ChatGPT apps
that sounded like a threat.
went on the App Store and the Android Store claiming to be the ChatGPT app and taking people's information and getting credit card details and charging people.
Again, be skeptical. Be skeptical in the App Store. Be skeptical in all the different places. Make sure you know what you're getting. Be healthily skeptical.
And not actually giving them ChatGPT. So be very, very careful when you're looking for the ChatGPT app in the App Store. Make sure that it is the one produced by OpenAI, and your best bet is to actually go to the OpenAI blog and click on the button to download on the App Store, just to make sure that you're getting the authentic OpenAI ChatGPT app, because there are a lot of fake apps out there. Now, noticeably, when you do use the ChatGPT app, it doesn't yet have the new browsing features and the new plugins built into it yet. However, my friend MattVid Pro found a little bit of a workaround.
Oh, okay, this is really interesting. So you actually can use the plugins and web browsing, you just can't start a new chat unless you start it on the computer first. But once you have access to it, you can see Wolfram is still in here.
So essentially, if you start using one of the plugins from the ChatGPT inside of your browser, and then you continue that same conversation from your phone, that plugin or the browser feature still continues to work. It just doesn't seem that you can start with that plugin enabled from the ChatGPT on your phone. I have a feeling that'll be something that's updated fairly soon, though. I'll link to Matt's full video below in the description so you can watch his demonstration of the new app itself. All right, now moving off of OpenAI news, Google did make another announcement this week. They announced that they're adding AI-powered coding for free inside of Google Colab. Now, if you've watched some of my past videos, I actually show you how to use Dream Booth inside of Google Colab. It's basically a platform where people can write code, allow others to access that code, and then run that code inside of Google's clouds. Well, they are now adding generative coding directly into the platform. You can see an example here where somebody asks a question and it actually gives coding help right inside of Google Colab. And they say access to these features will roll out gradually in the coming months, starting with the paid subscribers. But they do point out anyone with an internet connection can access Colab and use it free of charge. So it sounds like it's going to be available for free users eventually. They're just rolling it out to the paid users first. Now, if you've ever generated images with Stable Diffusion and you've used Stability AI's Dream Studio and you really like this platform for generating images, maybe you prefer it over something like Automatic 1111.
I prefer Arberlin, who you may have seen around in a variety of chats. Arberlin is pushing for general artificial intelligence as opposed to artificial general intelligence, which I think is a more accurate descriptor. If we're talking about artificial human intelligence, then you would have to go back on your previous position of the AI being an extension of humanity and our technology as being an extension of it. Because if the AI is capable within its digital domain of reflecting human intelligence, then why is it not human? Well, an intelligent language processor is more limited. It would just be processing language as opposed to actually, like, thinking as we understand it.
Actually just announced that this Dream Studio platform is being open sourced. So you can actually download the code for this and install it locally on your computer. You can build off of it, iterate off of it. You have full access to the code.
Is that from a song or an anime, Alina? Or did you just make that up? I need more of a sentence there, Bark Eater J.
Code for this Dream Booth platform now. You can find.
What is it? Game. Why does to be human include wetware? Like, why is that a qualifier?
It over at
just because it's always been done that way?
Stability AI's official GitHub. You can see all of the code is available to download. They have instructions on how to install it. Now, one thing to keep in mind about using Dream Booth, while the Dream Booth platform itself is open source, they do say right here, you'll need to have...
Then we can redefine it, as we do redefine many terms when they are no longer sufficient. Everything we make is in our own image. You're not wrong there.
Have your API key handy to use the default Stability API plugin. In order to use the API, there are actually costs involved. If you check out Stability AI's documentation, they have all of the details about how much this actually costs.
Thank you. The intelligent language processor would know how to process human input and pass appropriate information at appropriate times to appropriate modules to perform tasks. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier with the modular nature of like simulating the functionality of a brain with all these diverse AIs acting as modules, which my man Matt Wolf has talked about, like related to Hugging Face, which is capable of being an AI of AIs and assisting you in using different modules to act on its behalf. The language is a shared understanding, so if we don't come to an agreement about the change, then we will be on separate paths. I want to say that already happens because there are already people who have words that some of us use in a particular way, and they don't want to use them in that particular way, and they want to make wannabe documentaries about not wanting to use a word in a particular way and then lose their shit and act like a total piece of shit on the internet and freak out on Twitter and generally be a disgusting human being. So I think we're already there. Like, I think the shared understanding is something that we don't actually do. Like, it's a shared understanding between a particular group for the sake of utility, but that by its own nature can create people who are resistant to that shared understanding. Artificial human intelligence, the only thing we know at this point, processors, TF gate, we really need to think we really think these machines are more than we created. I don't know that that's the case. I feel more along the lines of that we disagree on what they're actually capable of. I think it is hazardous to our society and culture to do that 100%. But I think that some people don't want to get on board and not be pieces of shit on the internet, and they're a problem. Okay, so how is your brain not a series of logic gates mashed closely together? All right, we'll be here.
Costs, but they appear to be moving to a model where you can open source the platform that actually creates the images, but to access the API behind.
And I don't understand how that, okay.
The scenes,
go off.
You still need to pay Stability AI to use their API keys. So the tool is open source, but it's not necessarily free to use. So just keep that in mind. Now, in the world of robotics and AI, this week, a company called Sanctuary AI demoed their new humanoid walking AI robot.
To an extent, Culture Debates, I'm letting my man work through his thing. There is the absolute potential that they could, if we gave them the ability to self-recursively learn. Right? That is not a fantasy. That is something that could happen. Because we come from, that doesn't fail logic tech, we have advanced and have created smarter and smarter humans because of our capabilities of technology, things like language, things like our ability to write books, our ability to extend knowledge beyond the individual and beyond the individual's lifetime. We have already done this. I'm just talking about the next progression. I think your human hubris is related to like not being able to see something be capable of more than we are. I think you're being very humanocentric in that regard.
This demo here went somewhat viral on Twitter, showing off the robot that looks like it could be straight out of iRobot, and it's called Phoenix. They call it a general purpose robot, so essentially it's a robot that they see being able to do anything that humans would possibly be able to do. I mean, maybe it'll be able to do...
That's the word, thank you. Anthropocentric.
Your laundry or wash your car for you. Who knows? One thing that's good to know is that it's got a speed of 3 miles per hour. So if this robot ever does try to attack you, all you have to do is walk briskly away from it. The first time I saw this, I thought it was somebody having fun with AI video tools. Not to be outdone, several hours later, Tesla dropped their own video of their own humanoid robot called Tesla Optimus. And while this first video went semi-viral, Tesla's video went really viral.
That is, on that we are in complete agreement. Like, there are certain functions of a robot that will need to be bipedal as they will operate in the way that humans do, right? Like, and because we are bipedal, it will reflect that, right? But by the same token, there are so many robots that should have like wheels and tracks and arms, you know, and be function built rather than try to reflect the humanoid form. Yeah.
And this video actually shows the robot walking around, a scene that looks straight out of iRobot as well, some crazy jumping abilities of the robot, and also the fact that, look, it actually won't crush the egg, and this guy has to prove that it's a real egg. It also memorizes its environment, and it showed off some of the computer vision technology that's built into it. They also showed off that it's actually
have a
trained
robot,
by
though.
humans doing things. So you can see that humans do things, and then the robot can actually repeat the motions and actions that the humans did. So right now, we're seeing a bit of a battle between all the large language models and the companies race for large language models. Are we also going to start to see a battle between AI robotics companies and who's going to release the first multi-purpose humanoid robot? I don't know. We'll see, but it's still fun to watch. Now, in the world of bizarre AI news, a Texas A&M professor fails an entire class of seniors, blocking them from graduating, claiming that every single one of them used ChatGPT. And the way that he determined that every single one of them used ChatGPT was that he took their essays, copied and pasted them into ChatGPT and said, "Hey, ChatGPT, did you write this?" And for every single one of them, ChatGPT said, "Yes, that looks like something I would have written." But here's the problem with ChatGPT. It says that about everything. You can literally copy and paste almost anything into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will tell you that that looks like something I would have written. So it's not a very good test of whether or not something was written by ChatGPT. And that's pretty much the breakdown of all of the cool stuff that happened in AI this week. And next week is going to be exciting as well. I've even got some sneak peeks of what's coming next week. One of my favorite AI video companies called Kyber just dropped this teaser on Twitter of a new text to video AI that they're about to release next week. May 23rd is the date that they're going to drop access to this. And I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it and playing around with it. Also, one of my favorite AI art companies, Leonardo AI, is releasing a brand new pipeline for their image generation. It's called Leonardo Alchemy, and they actually sent me some teaser images to show off the type of generations that we can get out of this.
This is the one that I use and that I have used for all the different things featured within my stream. Leonardo, it's the one that I prefer.
New pipeline. So Leonardo Alchemy is also dropping next week, and these images are just awesome. So that's something else we have to look forward to next week. And finally, in Seattle next week, Microsoft is putting on their Microsoft Build event. It runs from May 23rd to May 25th. And this is essentially an event that they put on for developers to show what they're working on that developers can build off of. Some of the speakers include Satya Nadella himself from Microsoft, Greg Brockman, the co-founder of OpenAI, as well as other various executives over at Microsoft. We can all expect some huge AI announcements around the future of Microsoft and OpenAI coming during this Microsoft Build event. The last few weeks in AI have really ramped up in pace again, and I really don't see next week slowing down just based on what I've seen already. And if you really want to stay in the loop with all of this crazy AI stuff that's
Yeah, you should absolutely go follow Matt. He is great. Samson's, I think that you, or Simpsons, I think that you, and is it Samson's? I don't know. You got a 4 in there, which makes me think it's an A, but friggin' James always calls you Simpsons. So, Samson. Okay. All right. That's what I thought, but like, you know, it's the internet. So, yeah, I disagree. I think that it will eventually be capable of outpacing us, and only time will tell. But in the meantime, it has been an absolute pleasure to be your host for the amount of time that you have been here. Make sure you hit that follow button if you want to see more. Again, like, I feel like we could do this for days. So, anyways, I am going to do my level best to. I am always rating someone, because that's how this works. I'm going to do my level best to stream tomorrow, so make sure you're either in the Discord and following the channel, or that you got your notifications turned on. We're going to go raid Levelhead, the homie Extreme. I appreciate all of you. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, and take your meds if you forgot. And as always, Choggy loves you. So do I. I will see you tomorrow.